promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
People listen, people listen. People on the street, people on the move in these times. Thoughts are running wild, no one doesn't know, and the feelings always show. In these streets alone, can we be a voice? It's convoluted, thick with agitation. I don't know how to deal with this damnation. More than midnight. Then why do I feel like I'm going crazy?
Evening, friends of Faith in Public Life. It is so good to see you. I'm Reverend Susan Smith, Reverend Dr. Susan Smith, and I am sitting in for Paisha Thomas. So we hope that she gets well. She said that she got that second shot, and it's it's kicking her around. So we hope that she feels better very soon. We want to welcome you to Tres Madres 3 years later. And as we were watching that video, I found that I was welling up as I saw the images. They're just so indicative of where we are in this world. And in his book, New Empire, Kahindi Andrews, writes it in The New Age of Empire, the United States has become the center of modern colonial power. The country likes to present itself as a victim of British colonialism, which freed itself from tyranny, and now looks to do the same for the rest of the world. But this is a delusional fantasy. The United States is, in fact, the most extreme expression of racist worldviews. Not only does the United States have its own history and present of colonial possession, but its entire existence is based on the logic of Western empire. And in that empire, there is this whole concept of white supremacy, which means that they feel entitled to take advantage of people of color. And so we struggle with it, and mothers struggle with it. The first Tres Madres event happened on May 20th, 2018 at Columbus Mennonite Church, where Edith Espinal was living in sanctuary at the time. And if you don't know her story, you will hear it as we go through this program. We heard the stories of these three mothers and how their struggles for liberation and dignity for themselves and their families intersected due to the hostility of white supremacy, police violence, criminalization at the border, and all sorts of things that are a part of this country. During that event 3 years ago, two heroes of the movement were present and leading it, our own Amber Evans and Rubén Castilla Hererra. Both died in early 2019, and they were dear to us all. They were dear to the struggle. They were warriors. They fought with everything that they had. They never gave up. And it was just very sad and very difficult for all of us when they passed. So I wanted us to just take a moment to honor them, just a moment of silence to honor them and all of their work. Without warriors like Amber and Rubén, without so many warriors that are unnamed, people who are on the streets, people who refuse to let up, people who refuse to, as one of the Fox commentators said one time to LeBron James, shut up and dribble. We have too many people who refuse to shut up and dribble. There's too much suffering. There's too much injustice going on. And so we honor these two warriors, and we honor all of the warriors that we know and that we don't know, because without their work, none of us would be here. So tonight we're going to hear from three mothers, Tres Madres. The first will be Adrienne Hood, who lost her son, Henry Green. We know her well. She is on fire. She is bold and she is courageous, and she does not let up. Adrienne Hood. Following her, there will be Jackie Kifuko, and then finally our own Edith Espinal. So I'm going to be quiet and go away, and we're going to give the floor to my friend and my sister, Adrienne Hood.
Good evening, everyone. Such a pleasure to be here again. Wow, 3 years have gone by this fast. And there's so many things that have happened since we last met. So starting with my son, Henry Green, for those who weren't there the first time and may not know who he was or who he is and who I am. My son was killed by two plainclothes police officers here in Columbus, Ohio, June 6th of 2016. And it was in that time, that horrible, trying time, that I met my comrades that Reverend Sue just talked about, my precious Amber and dearest Rubén. When Rubén first reached out to me to do this specific project, I was touched in so many ways and was able to sit back and reflect on how we are three different mothers fighting for and in different spaces, however, coming from the same place. And that is a heart and a love and the passion that we have for our children, the commitment that we have for our children. And so, since 2016, I have been tirelessly fighting for my son, but not only my son, I fight for all those who came before my son. And if I say Bub, that is who I am talking about, because that's who we affectionately know him as. Um, but even the ones that have come after Bub, I stand in solidarity. I stand in the gap at times for families who don't necessarily have the strength at the moment to be in this fight. So, like many cases, my son's case and the officers were not indicted by the grand jury, which is very unfortunate. Um, but nonetheless, we have continued to fight for changes here in Columbus by way of policies, specifically policies. Because one thing I have learned and I know for sure is it definitely is going to take the heart of a man. And if you can't change the heart of the man, you can definitely change the policies. Um, and so, with that, we filed a wrongful death lawsuit, and originally it was dismissed by the first judge, and we appealed. My attorney and I appealed. He argued our case in the appeal earlier this year and did a phenomenal job. And with that, we won our appeal. So I look forward to us going to trial sometime later this year. I'm really looking forward to being able to expose the things that go on within the Columbus Police Department that hinder us from getting the accountability that we deserve. I don't often use justice because I can't get that because you can't give me my son back. So the closest for me is accountability. And so I do look forward to that trial coming up later on this year, and solicit all of the prayers, all the prayer warriors that are watching and listening, or who may see this video later. Continue to call out my family's name because I know prayers change things. Prayers bring victory when everybody else says that it can't happen. Um, so I thank you in advance for those prayers. So we have also, like I said, won our appeal. In these last few years, I have also joined an organization that was founded by one of my dear friends and sisters in this fight, Sabrina Jordan, and that's Ohio Families Unite Against Police Brutality. And her son, Jamarco McShann, was killed in Dayton, and she formed this organization, and we have brought sisters and brothers together from across Ohio, put our boots on the ground, and we have taken off running. And we are taking our message across the state, and we will be on May the 15th here in Columbus at Franklin Park, having a rally to bring awareness to the families that have been harmed here in Ohio. We were honored for people to finally show up and stand up when we seen the unfortunate murder of George Floyd on TV that struck not just this country, but across this world, um, it resuscitated some hearts, I like to say. And we have people who have joined because they are ready to fight the injustices. So, Ohio Families Unite Against Police Brutality is something that I have been very active in, will always be active in, because, again, we are fighting for the policies to be changed, not just in Columbus, but in this state, and then also in this country, because we have reached out to our legislators on all levels, seeking for this guidance, um, and for these policies to be changed. Um, so we've been working hand in hand with a few of the legislators here in Ohio, and Joyce Beatty has also finally taken the charge to lead in Washington where this is concerned, and so we look forward to what that's going to look like for our country, and also for our states and our respective cities as well. Um, Another thing that I am in the process of planning is the March on Washington that Martin Luther King did so many years ago. The families who have been impacted by police brutality are planning our own march on Washington, August the 28th in DC. It is family, it is coordinated by the families, it is led by the families, and the families will be the main ones speaking what we want. And what we want is for these cases to be reopened, and the Department of Justice has the power to do that. And from there, we want these police officers to be prosecuted, convicted, and sent to jail. So those are the things that I have been actively involved in, and am looking forward to the changes that these the work that we're doing is going to provide for our communities, because we all deserve to be safe. We all deserve to be protected and served. And until that happens, we cannot come off the battlefield. And quite honestly, we will never be able to come off the battlefield, because everything that we have ever gotten has come by way of us fighting, by way of us standing up for the things that we feel we deserve. Um, and we shouldn't have to beg for these things. There are a lot of situations that have happened, a lot of killings that have happened to especially Black and Brown people in this country. The numbers are god awful, and we should not have to convince people of our humanness. We should not have to do that. So I am thankful that there are more people that are standing on the right side of justice now. But it is never too late. It is never too late. If you are still on the fence, um, and wanting to, a lot of people have a challenge with wanting to support police officers, and feel that they're turning their backs on police officers if they speak up for these injustices. And I'm here to tell you that is not the truth. And that narrative is false. What we are asking for is accountability. There is absolutely no profession out there who is 100% accurate. And so when we are asking is when individuals make a mistake or cause harm intentionally, hiding behind a badge should not be acceptable just because they have qualified immunity. It should not be acceptable. I also did a TED Talk back in October speaking about that very thing, and people not understanding how it is that we can see something that is so blatantly wrong and still not see accountability happen. A lot of that is tied to qualified immunity and the Fraternal Order of Police, which is the FOP. Those two demonic forces walking and working hand in hand have continued to cause harm in our communities. So these are just a smidget of the things that I have learned over these past few years that have really blown my mind and have sickened me all at the same time, because these evils should have been corrected a long time ago. They should have been corrected a long time ago. But we are at a point, we're at a pivot point in this country where we can come together, where we should be coming together. God's children should be coming together to stand up for injustices and do what is right. On the right side of history is where we all should be. Our names should be written there on the right side of history. So I won't take up much more time. There's others to speak, but I thank you for having me, and God bless you all.
Thank you so much, Adrienne. You know, as you were talking, I was thinking about your strength. I don't know how mothers who have gone through what you go through, I don't know how you do it, but you made me think of how Mamie Till must have felt. I love her story. I love her courage. I love her strength and her determination that they were not going to push this under the rug. What I have noticed and what I'm reading and studying is seeing how, you know, atrocities have been committed against Black and brown people, and then the people that do them deny that it ever happened. It's just crazy. But you have that spirit. I call it the Mamie Till spirit. You've got that spirit, and you let them know that no, it's not. We're not going to forget it. It comes from America's, you know, immersion in white supremacy and the dehumanization and the criminalization of Black and brown people. And it has been the philosophy of white supremacists from way long time ago, before it ever got to America, that people who were Black and brown needed to be exterminated. That's not hyperbole. That is the truth. So when I see mothers like you just pushing back, I just say, thank God for you, because, you know, there is no love like the love of a mom or dad for his or her child, and you just keep fighting. So thank you for sharing what you've shared. Our next speaker is Jackie Kifuko. I hope I said it right. And I'm just going to be quiet and let her talk. Jackie, please share your story with us.
Thank you, Reverend Susan. It's a great pleasure to spend this evening with you all who are listening to us. I don't know what to say, because when I was called to do this again, it just reminded me of the great people that were highlighted at the beginning. Rubén and Amber, I remember they were the first people who kind of motivated me to believe in myself, to know that my story counts. And from that time, I've never stopped, because I realize it's one of the ways I can connect with the public, be able to inform them of what actually happens with the refugee population. So I begin off by giving a little background of who I am, starting with my name. My name is Jackie Kifuko. I'm a refugee organizer. I work with Community Refuge and Immigration Services, one of the two refugee resettlement agencies here in Columbus. So I'm a former refugee from Uganda, a country in East Africa. And for better understanding, I would like to walk you through or define for you who a refugee is. And by definition, a refugee is anyone outside his or her country of nationality who is unable or unwilling to return to the country because of persecution or well-founded fears of persecution based on race, religion, nationality, membership to a social group, or political opinions. So with me in my situation, I was working as an advocate for um, minority groups, which included the LGBT community. So in my country, um, you're not supposed to be defined as a refugee, I mean, LGBTIQ. So at that in 2014, the president of our country ended up signing the Kill Them All bill, which meant that if you're working with LGBT communities, if you're associated with anyone who is defined to be LGBTIQ, you either go for life imprisonment or you get killed. So this incited communities to just kill people, and the law would protect them. So at that point, many people who are working with the LGBTI communities, many who identified as gay people fled the country. Most of them went to Kenya. So I also ended up in Kenya. So the time I left, I had a 2-year-old son who I couldn't travel with at that point because it was extremely risky and I barely knew where I was going. Um, so you might be wondering how I lost track of my son. By the time I reached in Kenya, Kenya seemed, I thought Kenya would be exactly similar to my country, but unfortunately, um, Kenya, they primarily use Kiswahili as the main mode of language for communication, which I barely knew. And when I reached in the country, in most cases, since you don't know, it's not easy. Like when you come here, you have GPS, you have all those type of sophisticated phone applications to guide you, find where you're going. This didn't happen. So I was attacked by a group of robbers who took the little items I traveled with, and so I was undocumented in Kenya. And the only place I could go to was the UNHCR, which is the United Nations High Commission, to report myself as a refugee. And it took me days. I cannot describe that hard process. It took me a while because I couldn't communicate with anyone. And if I went to the police, I would, Kenyan police at that I don't know right now, but they were so corrupt that they would just put me in prison because I didn't have any form of identification. So luckily, I was able to relocate. The UNHCR offices were registered as an asylum seekers. I know in most cases, people think when you flee your country, you automatically become a refugee, but unfortunately, it's different. So you start off as an asylum seeker in this country. You go through a series of interviews um, to confirm if your allegations are right, do background check. And one of the other misinformation I've had is everyone who flees this country is going to be resettled to another country. No, that's not true. So when you flee your country, you basically want to be protected. You want to be safe. So the bottom what I wanted at that time was to be protected from the government agencies from my country who were targeting my life. And luckily, in 2017, I was identified to be resettled in a third country. By that, it means you can be taken to countries like US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, a couple of countries in Europe. So um, with me, I was lucky to be identified as somebody who can resettle in the US. First of all, I could speak English. It doesn't mean that everyone who is resettled can speak English, but the caseworker who worked on my case, she was like, US will be a suitable country for you. But remember, I mentioned I left my son behind, and in the process, I learned that I fled the country when I was pregnant too. So I was struggling throughout the entire time when I was a refugee with the emotion of being separated from my son. It was hard for me to cope up. And actually, at some point, I almost declined getting resettled because I felt like I would be so many miles away from him. All what I needed was my family, and my family was my boy. So having both boys together would be my pride. So I was convinced, which I thought worked, and I thought it was right, that if I get in the US, it will be easier for me. First of all, I'll be able to work and I'll be able to apply for the family reunification. So if you remember well, 2017, that was when the previous administration took over, and so many anti-immigrant bills were put in place, which blocked me from uniting with my family, with my boys. So I struggled. That's how I connected with Rubén. And he told me the only way people can know your story is by you sharing it. So it was not easy, because the first time I started sharing my story, I was just crying. But later on, I learned that when I shared it, there are so many people who joined me. I realized there are so many refugees here in Columbus who were in the same situation like me. So CRIS got us together. CRIS, by that I mean Community Refuge and Immigration Services. We got together. We mobilized many families that were separated, for us to go and educate the legislators about our situation. And surprisingly, we learned that many of them were against the refugee resettlement program, but we are very ignorant about what exactly happens. So every time I shared my story, the first question I remember would be told, did you come through the southern border? I'm like, no. Actually, I was identified by the US in Nairobi, and I was brought in as somebody who was, at that point, you're told America is your country, your second country you call home, because your country has denied you the opportunity to live in it. So we started educating people, so many families. I don't know if is it possible to share some of the pictures behind there? The pictures that I shared with you. Okay, let's move forward. Yes. So as you can see, all those families, the youngest boy is my son, whom I last saw 7 years ago. Once in a while we communicate, but he struggles to understand why I can't live with him. And he has a brother whom I've raised here in the US, and they barely know each other. So sometimes the one I have here confuses him as a friend, a cousin. So it has never sunk in him that he's his brother. While for him, I am referring to my son who is back in Africa, knows that he has a brother, and it always hurts him when he comes back from school and he's like, my friends talk about their brothers, they talk about their sisters, and I always tell them mine is far away from me. So I I I sometimes struggle knowing that we shall never bond. I feel he's a stranger to me. Every year that goes, he becomes a stranger to me. We have a mother who is veiled next to my son. She was in the pipeline to get resettled. Her case was approved. But unfortunately, the family was large. I learned that there were over 9 people who were getting resettled at that time. So they were advised that they should come in 2 portions. So that meant there was one part of the family that will come first, and then the other one will follow like after a week. But unfortunately, till today, the first bunch of the family was able to come in Columbus. But a week later, when the Trump administration took over office, it came up with bills that blocked Muslims, people from Somalia, from getting to the US. So she is a Muslim, she's from Somalia, and because of that, her case has been pending. So that is how this family separated. And the son who is here currently is a long haul truck driver who served this country throughout the COVID-19. He has never given up to advocate for the mother, lifting up his story. But I always see the pain between the two. Every time I meet him, he's like, I don't know when I'll ever see my mom, and I can't go back. And that family had lived, at the time, the other part of the family came here, had lived in the camp for 15 years. So the whole process takes long. We see these two, the boy and the girl standing behind the brother. So for them, the time they fled their country of origin, it so happened they were living with their grandmother in a different part of their country, and the mom was also living in a different part. So when the war broke in their country, they went to different countries. The children went to Ethiopia, and their mom went to Kenya. So all that time she was struggling to find where her children were. She took over 5 years, more than 5 years in the camp. Luckily for her, she got resettled. And when she got here, she was like, it will be easy to locate my children. It took her more 2 years to find them. I mean, to find where they were, which country they were in. Then she started off the process of resettlement, but still the anti-immigrant bills held them back. Their grandmother died, so and the little girl is sick. She had cerebral palsy, which means it's the brother taking care of her. Sometimes he's frustrated. Sometimes he feels that's not his role, which is understandable. But this is what happens in the refugee world. So many families have been separated, but we are so happy that yesterday the President Biden was able to revise the number of refugees to be resettled this fiscal year. The previous administration mm, had had capped to 15,000 refugees to be resettled. That means usually people think that is when they come up with that number, everyone gets resettled. But unfortunately, there are different criteria. When the president mentioned that he wanted only 15,000, he went ahead and made the category very restrictive. He wanted people from particular countries. He mentioned Iraq, Venezuela. So still, the families that are highlighted here were not in that category. So the sitting president is the one who determines which category of people to get resettled and what number to be resettled. So with President Biden, he expanded on this number. He removed the restrictions and at the same time also increased the number, which gives people more chances those who've been stuck in the pipeline for a very long time to be resettled. So it's a sad story to know that people are separated in different ways. And in most cases, we have policymakers going ahead to make policies without looking to situations of different refugees or different families. One thing you need to know, every story is unique, every story is painful, but with the support of the general public, we've had some of these policies erased, which is amazing. I am, despite the fact that I'm not yet with my son, I am still passionate to advocate for other families. I have seen Republicans changing their hearts towards refugees. For example, Steve Stivers, when I shared my story with him, it was his first time. He mentioned in our meeting that it was his first time to meet with refugees and to hear a story. And from that time onwards, he started advocating on our behalf. I remember he took on my story to the Congress floor, which was really great to see that usually people policymakers will come up with their policies based on how they feel about individuals. But when you continue to work with them and share, you open up and let them know more of what's happening in your world, they in most cases change their mindsets. So I will leave the rest to talk. I just wanted to highlight some of those stories of what exactly happens with the refugees. And one thing you need to know, I will continue to advocate for refugees regardless. And I call upon you all to join reach out to your neighbors. Some of your neighbors are former refugees. Get to know more of them. Let them share their stories with you if you're willing to listen. And some of the ways you can support the refugee and immigrant population here in Columbus is go out to their businesses, visit their businesses, support them, hire them. When a refugee gets in this country, he is employable, so you can hire them if you're able to. So I'll end with that and let Edith take on. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Jackie. It is true that if we spent more time to talk to people, we would know what they're going through. That's an awfully sad story. And it's bad that there are so many people who are in that kind of pain and are sad because of that. So thank you so much for sharing. My goodness. Our next speaker, our final speaker, is Edith Espinal. Edith will have with her her translator, Carrie. Is it Verade? Verade, is that correct? So I turn it over to them. Edith, we want you to tell us your story. That's what we want. I'm sorry, I should have made it more clear.
Hi. My name is Edith Espinal. I want to share my story. And thank you, Reverend Susan, for being part of the CRIS Madres event. Kerry, creo que voy a hablar en español.
I'm going to speak in Spanish.
Como ustedes saben, yo estuve viviendo en santuario por 40 meses y el 18 de febrero, pues gracias a Dios, pude salir del santuario.
So as you all know, I was living in sanctuary for 40 months, and on February 18th, thanks to God, I was able to leave sanctuary.
Y pues me da mucho gusto que hoy podamos, después de 3 años, reunirnos con Jackie y Adrienne.
It makes me really happy that now, 3 years later, we're able to reunite with Jackie and Adrienne.
Recuerdo cuando hace 3 años estuve hablando con Rubén cómo podríamos enseñar a la comunidad historias similares a la mía.
I remember 3 years ago when I was speaking with Rubén about how we could share stories to the community, similar stories to mine.
Y creo que la historia de Jackie, de Adrienne y la mía son similares porque las 3 luchamos por nuestros hijos y las 3 luchamos por las injusticias que han estado en nuestras vidas.
I think our 3 stories, mine and Jackie's and Adrienne's, are similar because we're all fighting for our children and we're all fighting against the injustices that affect our families.
Y yo siempre le doy gracias a Dios por haberlas puesto en mi camino, porque si Rubén no me hubiera apoyado, creo que tal vez yo no hubiera estado en santuario y hubiera sido deportada.
And I give thanks to God for putting them in my path, for putting Rubén in my path. I think if not for Rubén, maybe I wouldn't have entered sanctuary and I would have been deported.
Y pues les voy a compartir que pues pude salir del santuario bajo inspección y tengo que presentarme en las oficinas de ICE cada 4 meses.
And I want to share that I was able to leave sanctuary under inspection. Every 4 months, I have to present to the ICE office for an appointment.
Y pues todavía sigo teniendo mi orden de deportación.
And I still have my deportation order.
Y pues también, como ustedes saben, el gobierno anterior del expresidente Trump me dio una multa de casi $500,000.
You all might know the previous government of ex-President Trump fined me almost $500,000.
Esa multa fue retirada, pero nuevamente en noviembre del 2020 nos mandaron una nueva multa con casi $60,000.
That fine was ended, but on November of 2020, they gave us a new fine for almost $60,000.
Y hace 2 semanas atrás el director del Departamento de Migración, Mallorca, hizo un comunicado donde dijeron que ellos iban a quitar las multas y no iban a seguir cobrando las multas a las personas que resistan a su orden de deportación.
And about 2 weeks ago, the director of the migration, Mayorkas, announced that they would be ending all of those fines and no longer giving new fines to anyone who is in the United States with a deportation order.
Pero yo todavía sigo teniendo mi multa. Estamos con los abogados esperando que ellos nos manden un documento oficial donde diga que ya no tengo que pagar esa multa.
But I still have the fine, so we're waiting together with my attorney for them to send a document saying I no longer have to pay this fine.
Y pues creo que me sentiría muy tranquila y segura que esa multa ya no la tenga que pagar, porque a pesar de que no estoy en santuario, todavía sigo teniendo miedo de que esa multa estén cobrándomela y por tener mi orden de deportación.
So I think I would feel a lot calmer if this fine is removed because I still, even though I'm out of sanctuary, I still have a lot of fear about this fine and about the deportation order.
Y pues no voy a dejar de luchar por mantener mi familia unida. Seguiré luchando hasta arreglar mi situación migratoria.
And I'm not going to stop fighting to keep my family together. I'll continue fighting until I no longer have a deportation order.
Pues gracias a Dios también ahorita tengo una visa que ha sido preaprobada, pero la lista de espera son 2 años.
And thanks to God, I now have a visa that was pre-approved, but the waiting list for it is 2 years.
Y pues también después de haber salido del santuario, mi abogada hizo una aplicación para que yo pudiera obtener un permiso de trabajo y pues estamos esperando que ellos me aprueben mi permiso de trabajo y me lo puedan enviar.
And after I left sanctuary, my lawyer was able to apply for a work permit. So we continue waiting for me to get that work permit to be able to start working.
Y pues me siento muy contenta ahora de que puedo tener mi libertad, puedo disfrutar con mis hijos, verlos las 24 horas del día, los 7 días de la semana.
And I feel really content that I now have my freedom, that I can enjoy spending time with my children, that I can see them 24 hours of the day, 7 days a week.
Y pues contenta porque también puedo salir con mi hija a pasear, con mis hijos y también poder salir ahora a caminar a mi perrita Vela, como ustedes saben. Ella estuvo acompañándome conmigo cuando estuve en santuario.
And I'm also really happy that now I'm able to go out with my daughter, with my children, to spend time outside. I'm also able to go on walks with my dog, Bella. As you all know, she accompanied me the whole time I was in sanctuary.
Y pues hay días que me pongo triste porque recuerdo todo lo que pasé en santuario, de vivir en santuario, pero también me siento feliz porque ahora sé que puedo respirar aire fresco, puedo tomar el sol y puedo disfrutar del día a día de estar fuera de santuario.
And there are days where I feel sad because I remember everything that happened, everything I went through being in sanctuary. But I also feel happy that I'm able to breathe the fresh air, to take in the sun, and to enjoy my freedom.
Y pues quiero darle gracias a la comunidad siempre por todo el apoyo, a todas las personas que me apoyaron y que me han seguido apoyando y pues les agradezco mucho por también haber votado por el cambio y porque esto también pudo haber sido posible.
And I always give thanks to the community for all of your support and give thanks that you voted for change because that change made all of this possible.
Y pues muchas gracias por seguir apoyando a mi familia y por estar siempre para nosotros. Que Dios los bendiga a todos.
So thank you very much. Thank you for always being there to support my family. May God bless you all.
Thank you so much, Edith. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I feel the heaviness, and I know all of you who have been listening feel the heaviness, and yet the strength of these mothers. I don't know how you do it. I just want to ask one question. We don't have a lot of time. How do you deal with the heaviness that you have? You endured. Edith was in sanctuary all that time, 3 years, in one building. You couldn't even come outside. She couldn't even come outside, right, Carrie? All that time she was in sanctuary. Jackie having to leave her son, and Adrienne's son being shut down. How do you deal with the emotion that I know you still carry? How do you deal with that? Anyone can answer. I'm just curious.
A whole lot of prayer, a whole lot of crying, right? But I think the biggest thing is just knowing that my God is bigger.
Mm-hmm.
He truly is bigger. And for me, he showed himself faithful before this.
Mm-hmm.
So I have memories, right, of him doing it over and over again. And for me, it gives me peace to know that I'm never in this fight by myself. You know, with people or without people, I know that I'm not by myself because he's greater, and he's provided so much support, so much community support, and the love that has come my way. He shows me, so in so many ways he shows me, daughter, I have you.
Mm-hmm.
I have you. And so I rest in that.
I call that the embodiment of blessed assurance. Every time I think of that song, I think of that. Jackie, how do you deal with your sadness or your heaviness or your struggle?
Adrienne has said it well. My source of comfort is in the Bible. That's the first thing. And the other one is being around people. So my apartment at first was a place where I would get into tears. I would get afraid to get in my apartment. I never wanted to get there because I felt so alone. It's hard to be alone, knowing that every time I remember sharing with somebody that every time I sat down, I always felt guilty, or I still feel guilty. I'm like, maybe I made a wrong choice. Why did I do this? I start questioning myself. So I always enjoy surrounding myself with people. Luckily, the son I have here is growing up and he engages me a lot. So at the end of the day, I'm exhausted and I'm like, oh, we need to go rest. But it's not an easy thing. I would say it's not easy. I've always blamed myself. Yeah.
Edith, the same question to you. How do you do it? What do you do to keep yourself going?
Yeah, I always pray to God to make me strong and give me patience, because sometimes I feel that I can going forward to living in sanctuary. And always my husband tells me, you need to be strong, you need to doing this for us, for your kids, for your children. And siempre pidiéndole a Dios que me diera, que me permitiera seguir adelante en esta lucha.
Always asking God to allow me to continue in this fight.
Well, you have, full disclosure, I'm a bit crybaby. So when I talk to people who are suffering a lot, I get ready to cry. And so I'm not trying to do that because it'll hurt everybody's feelings. But you have really touched me. And I'm hoping that your stories have touched others and made people more aware of just the suffering and yet the fighting that goes on Three mothers who got together, who are related, who are connected by the most awful of circumstances. You have marching orders for people. You have something that you want people to do. Adrienne, you said you want people to join Ohio Families Unite Against Police Brutality, the Facebook group. And they can look that up on Facebook and get involved that way.
Yes, and we also just turned in all of our signatures to the Attorney General's office to start a ballot initiative to end qualified immunity in the state of Ohio. So we are looking forward to that going across our state as well.
And we need to do that. We need to put our support behind this. This is a Kairos moment, I think, with the previous administration, the craziness with that, and then the newness that we have right now. We have to take advantage of it, and I call it a Kairos moment. We can fret because things are yucky, but we have to fight while we fret, and this is a way to fight while we fret. I'm referring to Psalm 37. We just have to fight. Jackie, your walking orders for a celebrate increased refugee. You have a quote from the Biden administration. I understand that you want to share.
Yeah, I remember sharing that during the time I presented. We are celebrating that yesterday the Biden administration was able to lift the number of refugees from 15,000 to 62, which is really amazing. So, but still, I would call upon the general public to connect with the refugees, get to know them. People are struggling emotionally. You don't get to know that until you make the connection.
Right.
Nobody knew what I was going through until when I opened up and shared my story, because I was running east-west trying, it was shocking when I got here, and all the news that I was reading was immigrants are bad people, immigrants are this. So I felt like everyone is reading that on my face. It scared me until the day I met Rubén. I need to be honest. He was the first person who hugged me and told me, "You're welcome to Columbus. I'll be with you." So just those words made me feel somebody out there listened to me and somebody out there cares. Yeah.
That's important.
And that's what everyone wants from the community. Instead of reading information that will scare them off, you just need that one person who will give you a hug and tell you, "I love you. You're welcome."
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Powerful. And the spirit of Rubén and Amber, all with us. I can just feel their spirits and their presence.
Yeah.
They have done so much for all of us. And Edith, actually, this is a good segue to end with you, because you wanted to end with a quote, something that Rubén told you. But what are the marching orders that you wanted to give the people who are listening?
Lo que dijo la pastora, que dijo, perdón.
¿Qué órdenes quiere dar o qué cosas quiere compartir que las personas hagan antes de terminar?
Sí. Pues primero que me sigan apoyando, porque tengo mi próxima cita con la oficina de ICE o con los oficiales de ICE en junio. No recuerdo el día, pero creo que es el 15 de junio, y que visiten mi página para que ahí vean y me puedan acompañar a la cita de ICE.
So first, I want to ask people to continue supporting me, especially in my visit I have to make to the ICE office. I don't remember exactly what day it is, but it's around June 15th. So I ask that everyone visits my Facebook page for more information about how to continue accompanying me and accompany me during that visit.
Great. And the quote from Rubén, would you like to share?
Es como, ¿qué dijo? Lo que quiero que digamos de Rubén. Sí, pues Rubén, siempre recuerdo que él siempre me decía que él siempre iba a estar para mi familia y nunca me iba a olvidar, a abandonar, y que siempre me iba a proteger. Y pues lo que yo quería era que todos dijéramos cuando termináramos lo que siempre decía Rubén en cada lucha, que decía siempre: justicia hasta la victoria.
So I wanted to end remembering Rubén always being there to support, always being there to support my family and help us keep fighting. And I wanted us to close out with a quote that he would use to close meetings, which is justicia hasta la victoria, which means justice until victory.
Thank you. Thank you, Edith. Thank you, Adrienne. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, all of you who listened. This is a call for all of us to open our ears, have eyes that see and ears that hear and hearts that reach out to people. We have human beings in our midst who need a Rubén hug. They need a Rubén hug. They need blessed assurance that Adrienne talked about, and we have the power to do it. And so on that note, again, I want to thank all of you, all the mothers, the tres madres, the three mothers, and all of you who took the time to listen tonight. Take good care and God bless. Bye-bye.
God bless.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.